My guest is George Lakoff, professor of linguistics at the University of California, Berkeley, author of numerous books, including Don't Think of an Elephant. George, look at this last election cycle, and can you think of a particularly effective example of framing and also of reframing a message during the election cycle?
Sure. The conservatives did it very, very well. At the very beginning, when President Obama introduced his health care plan, Frank Luntz, who's one of their major messaging gurus, came out and wrote a memo. And he said, here's how we defeat it. We defeat it on moral grounds. We're going to show that Obama's health care plan is immoral on two moral principles, freedom and life. On freedom, we'll say it's a government takeover. On life, we'll talk about death panels. And that's what you heard, freedom, government takeover, death panels over and over again. Now, the conservatives have a messaging machine that goes very far beyond what the Democrats have. Mm-hmm. The conservatives have people booking their speakers on radio and TV and in other local venues all over the country. Every day there's a message that goes out that they're going to say and repeat over and over, and they're booked wherever they are, and they're trained. All those messengers have been trained by the tens of thousands year after year to think and talk conservative, and then they are on a list of people who are willing to speak and be booked.
Okay, so what about those who were supporting the Obama health plan who kept saying this is a moral issue?
They weren't listened to because they didn't say what moral issue it was. They didn't link the actual proposals to any moral issue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You have written about roles established early in childhood that can be activated by certain messages much later in life. I want you to explain that briefly because I want to apply it to some people.
Okay. Conservative child rearing in the James Dobson sense is about what I'll call strict father morality. And the idea is this. You need a strict father in a traditional family to protect the family. Mama can't do it. You need the strict father to support the family. Mommy can't do it. And you need the strict father to teach kids right from wrong because it's assumed that kids are born bad. Bad means that they don't know right from wrong and they just do what feels good. You've heard the term feel-good liberalism. Mm-hmm. That's where that comes from. It says liberals haven't been trained to do what's right. Now, how does a strict father do this? When the child does something that the strict father says is wrong, and the strict father is seen to be the moral authority of the family, then the strict father has the duty to punish that child, usually physically, usually by hitting. Dobson is sort of advanced in this. He says you should never hit a child below the age of 15 months. Now, however, after that, you should punish the child physically until their will is broken and they do what their father wants them to do. That is strict father morality, and it comes with a logic. The logic goes like this, that if you learn to be moral, you learn discipline. You learn internal discipline through physical discipline. Mm-hmm. And if you have internal discipline, you can go out into the free market and become prosperous using that discipline. What that means is if you're not prosperous, then you're not moral. And if you're not moral, you deserve to be poor. Right? That's one of the messages that comes out of this. It also says that all responsibility is individual responsibility. You get to heaven because of the individual things you do, not social responsibility. That is, it's not your business to take care of somebody else. You are not your brother's keeper. That's the basic message behind this. This gets transformed in a view of the market. So you've heard the expression, let the market decide. The market is the decider, the strict father in the economic sense. The market determines who is disciplined and who is not and rewards people who are fiscally disciplined. Moreover, the market is seen as natural and moral. It's seen as moral on the grounds that the invisible hand will make everybody the most profitable if everybody seeks their own self-interest, their own profit.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you to go to the second image because I want to apply it.
Okay.
So we've got the strict father on one hand, and what's the second?
The second is the nurturing parent. The nurturing parent has empathy, connects with, understands the child, is responsible for both himself and the child, and teaches the child to be empathize with others and be responsible for themselves and others. And also, they have an ethic of excellence to make yourself as good as possible, not only for yourself but for your community and your nation. Right? That is what a nurturing parent does, and it is the basis of all nurturing parenting. It is also those two philosophies of the family lie behind conservatism and liberalism.
Okay, now I want to. I want, with that theory in mind and those two images in mind, those two approaches, I want to throw out some names and you tell me what the communication dynamics are. What's going on with Sarah Palin in the public?
Sarah Palin has perfect pitch for conservative populism. And let me explain conservative populism. Conservative populism was constructed by Republican strategists starting around 1967 during the Nixon run for the presidency. In 1964, Goldwater had lost, and nobody wanted to be a conservative. Conservatism was a dirty word. However, there are many people who have both strict father and nurturing parent moralities, that is, who are partly conservative on some issues and partly liberal on other issues. And many working people are like that. By 1967, Lee Atwater and other strategists noticed that many working people could vote for Nixon, even though they saw themselves as liberals, because certain things had changed by 1967. First, there was an anti-war movement. So many working people who had been in the military were furious at the students who were anti-military. They were called communists by Nixon, and he ran on anti-communism. The women's movement had come about by 1967, and many of people who had strict father morality in their families, many working people, were threatened by the women's movement. So, Nixon ran on traditional family life. And then the civil rights movement had occurred in 1965, and many working men, especially racists in the South, were threatened by African Americans, thought they would lose their jobs and their social superiority to them. And therefore, Nixon ran on law and order and against school busing. What happened was they created the idea of conservative populism, and to go with it, they put down liberalism by creating the idea of the liberal elite, the pointy-headed liberals, the tax and spend liberals, the limousine liberals, who are smart and rich and look down on ordinary working people. Okay, and that idea has stuck and been developed since then, and has developed into the Tea Party. Now, Sarah Palin understands this in her bones. She has, perfect pitch on conservative populism. She knows just what to say in every situation.
What about Nancy Pelosi?
Nancy Pelosi is one of my great heroes. Nancy Pelosi understands the nurturing parent. She is a great mother and grandmother, but in addition to that, she is an amazing political strategist. She managed to pull together a Democratic Party that was split violently in three parts, and managed to get it to actually do some legislation, despite the fact that the Obama administration's messaging was completely off, and despite the fact that most people in the country didn't understand what was being proposed because the messaging was so far off. She is magnificent in that way. She has one shortcoming, which is she's not a thoroughly effective speaker. As a Speaker of the House, she is, but we put her on TV, and she's okay, but she's not great.
I see.
She doesn't know how to express exactly the moral basis of everything that is being done. She's very good at saying what the policy is.
Well, let me hustle to Pope Benedict.
Pope Benedict is highly conservative. He is the strict father of the Catholic Church. His reasoning is straight out of strict father morality on almost every ground, but not quite all. When it comes to poverty, he's much better than that. So he's sort of has both. He has a liberal sensibility when it comes to poverty, but not with respect to just about any social or political issue.
Yeah. George, and I'm hurrying because I'm running out of time, and there's so much I want to ask you. There is a pretty broad consensus in people's minds about the way Washington is expected to run in the next 2 years, and that's not a pretty picture. In terms of communication, what could happen that would be a real game changer in the next 2 years?
Two things. First, real moral leadership, saying over and over what the moral principles are and what they are patriotically, that our country was founded on the basis of empathy and responsibility, that freedom is there for that purpose, as Obama said in the election, that patriotism begins with people caring about each other. That needs to be said over and over. Another thing that is very important has to do with just understanding what hasn't been said before. Many things, like the fact that pensions, which are under attack now, are payments for work already done. Mm-hmm. That's why you have a pension. You've delayed your payment for work already done. Ideas like that are not being said, and they need to be said out loud. That would change things, but also constructing a communication system that is effective around the country would really make a change. They don't have a way to communicate, even if they had better framing. They don't have a way to communicate with lots of people around the country, and they need to do it better.
George, don't quit studying and don't quit writing. I promise you some of us are listening and trying hard to heed what you're saying. I've been talking with George Lakoff, professor of linguistics at the University of California, Berkeley, author of a number of terrific books. You need to read them. Don't Think of an Elephant, The Political Mind. Because politics happens in the brain, his study of that organ is an invaluable contribution to unraveling what's happening in politics today. He can help you understand why someone for capital punishment would be against abortion. This guy can help immensely. George, thank you for joining us. I sincerely hope you'll come back soon.
My pleasure, Welton. Take care. I hope to speak to you soon.
Visit us online at stateofbelief.com to find out more about the show. Listen to our show's archives and sign up for our podcast. That's stateofbelief.com. State of Belief Radio is a production of Interfaith Alliance. Let me tell you something. There's not been a time in recent memory when the cause of religious liberty needed more support. We need you. Join us today. Become a member of Interfaith Alliance. Go to interfaithalliance.org to learn more.